Hi, I'm Dave DeVore, and I'm going to talk today on experiencing God and His creation. And we'll have a little Bible study to start with, and then I'm going to go through pictures that demonstrate the majesty of God and His creation. I've always loved the outdoors, golfing, fishing, boating, and I've always taken pictures throughout my life. I was always the one in the family that got the snapshots of the vacations or the just pretty much snapshot type photography until I went to Kenya in 2009. And that's when I got introduced to nature photography on various photo safaris. And I just got back from my 21st trip to Africa in June. And I've been on probably 40 safaris or more at various game parks throughout all of Kenya. So I've fallen in love with nature, animal, and bird photography over the years, and I've gotten fairly serious about it. I go to national and state parks here in the U.S., and since I got my first real camera around 2012, a DSLR, I've taken more than 1 million plus pictures. So if I'm not getting better by now, I need to try something else. When I've wanted to go off on a trip, one place or another, and was going to miss a Sunday at church, my former pastor, Pastor Dave, I would go to him and tell him what was going on, and I was going to go to worship in the big church with no roof. And he would laugh and he would give me special dispensation and tell me to bring back good pictures and stay safe. And it was just a wonderful thing with him. So with no further ado, we're going to start the slideshow. I hope you enjoy this. So first off, we've got the very first part of the Bible in Genesis, the first chapter, the first verse. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. You'll notice that in the very first sentence, the fifth word is created. So we know already that God is the creator. That He's the one that designed this incredible nature that we live in and that He's left us in charge of. At the start of the Gospel of John is a passage that I dearly love. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through Him all things were made. Without Him nothing was made that has been made. And John is talking here about Jesus, who spoke the whole universe into existence. He's eternal. He and the Holy Spirit have been part of the Godhead since before time. And it's absolutely wonderful to know that our Savior is also the one who created everything and takes care of all of creation. Next, we have St. Paul in his letter to the Romans in the first chapter of that letter, where he talks about the wrath of God as being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness, since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, His eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. So here St. Paul tells us that we can clearly see God in His creation, that we can know that He is awesome, that He's all powerful, but we don't know everything about the gospel and about Him sending His Son to save us. So that's the next step that we have to take when we're working with non-believers or people that are seeking and want to know more about our faith. One of my favorite Psalms is Psalm 139, and right in the middle of that, David says, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb." So this tells us that God is also part of human reproduction, part of our birth, part of making us who we are. What an incredible, comforting thought that He cares about each one of us individually. So much so that in Matthew chapter 10, Jesus says, "Are not two sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside your Father's care. And even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows." So this verse tells me that Even though we're only one person out of 8 billion on the planet now, God knows every hair on our head and cares so much for us that he would want that all of us would be saved through his son. What an incredible thought. So with all of that said, we're going to move on to looking at God through his creation. And we're going to first look at macro or really big creation. And I'm going to work down from big to very small throughout this presentation as the order that we're going to do things in. This picture is of the Milky Way from Big Ben by my friend Stephen Burkich. He just did this recently. And what an incredible evening that must have been. That's a very hard type of photography because you have to do a lot of planning. You have to know where the Milky Way is going to be, where your subjects on the ground are going to be, what time to do the shot. And then you have to get a little bit lucky. You have to have a clear night. And that stuff doesn't always come together. In my experience, it's about every third or fourth time that you try, you end up getting something worthwhile to bring home. And then there's a lot of work in the computer afterwards. So again, thanks to Stephen Burkich for this beautiful photo where we see the eternal nature of God, the awesomeness of the Milky Way, all those constellations, all those stars. What an amazing thing in our own home constellation. This is a picture of the super blue moon that we just had this past week that I got. I quickly grabbed my camera, didn't have a tripod handy, and I leaned up against a tree and turned myself into a human tripod. So this is a little bit closer to home, but still an awesome sight, seeing a full moon, a super moon. Something that the poets and writers and songwriters have written about for since the beginning of time. What an inspiration it is to see something like this. This is another Stephen Burkich photo when he was in the Yukon Territory last year, and he did this beautiful landscape at night with the northern lights behind the mountains. What an awesome sight. I mean, this is just the feelings you get when you're out in the middle of something and you see it, you're speechless. I mean, there aren't any words to put on an experience like this. So next we move on to landscapes and pretty big creation right here on our planet. This is a sunrise at Bitter Lake National Wildlife Refuge near Roswell, New Mexico. I've gone there for the last 5 or 6 years with, I only missed 1 year due to COVID. And I go there and I go down to Socorro to Bosque del Apache for the sandhill cranes and the snow geese that roost there. It's just an incredible experience. And in the land of enchantment, as they call New Mexico, the sunrise and the sunsets are just absolutely outstanding. And again, you just stand there in awe of what you're seeing. This is from Lake Amboseli in Kenya last year. These are wildebeest crossing the lake at a low point in front of pink flamingos. And in the background there in the haze is Mount Kilimanjaro. So just what an incredible sight. Again, you just marvel at creation when you see this. Here's another one from Amboseli National Game Park near the Tanzanian border. And these are yet more wildebeest, a whole plain full of them. To be able to see such an awesome sight as this, as these animals are all getting staged for their annual migration to go up to the Masai Mara, several hundred miles away in Kenya, another famous game park. But they make that trek with zebras and elephants, and they do it every year, the round trip. Here's a sunset from my drone from about 300 feet up in Wells Branch near Austin, Texas. Do an awful lot of this kind of photography, and this is just like the night photography. For every 4 or 5 times you think there's going to be a really good sunrise or sunset, you might get one, and the rest may not pan out, but still you get that beautiful time meditating on nature and what God has done, whether you get something awesome like this or not. This is another shot of Mount Kilimanjaro with all the pink flamingos on the water. A perfectly still day, just incredible. Next, we're going to move on to the larger animals that I've encountered over the last 12 to 15 years, both here and in Africa. Of course, the largest of these are elephants, and I just love this family here with mom and dad and Junior. I love baby elephants. They're so cute, and elephants are just really neat. Just love their memory every year, how they do the same migration, how they can remember years later a kindness showed to them by a person or somebody that's been mean to them. It's just God is good. These are hippos, also at Lake Amboseli, and it's unusual to see them out of the water, but they're grazing early in the morning before the sun is too high. They actually have very sensitive skin and they sunburn very easily. And so most of the time you'll see them in the water protected from the sun, or they might roll in the dirt to coat their skins to protect it from the sunlight. And here we have another pair of hippos in the water a little bit later in the day, and the one is giving me the eye. This is a Cape buffalo at one of the game parks in Kenya, and there's another one in the background there. You can see a little bird on its back. It's called an oxpecker. There are birds that eat the bugs off of the herd animal, similar to what our cattle egrets do here in the States. Here's a mama white rhino along with her baby. And we've got a triplet of giraffes here in this shot. What magnificent creatures they are. They're so strong, they can kill a lion with one kick of their front leg. And from the knee down on their front leg, they don't have any cartilage in the bone. And so that bone is about as heavy as steel and just as deadly. It really is a weapon. This is a lion at Nairobi National Game Park on a kill of a buffalo that was probably killed overnight. And it's this one's turn to be working on the meat. There were other ones all around waiting for their turn, as well as jackals and hyenas and other animals that hope to get leftovers. And this is an eland, which is a rather large animal. And this one has two of those oxpeckers on its back. They're called red-billed oxpeckers. They got beautiful red eyes and a red bill to match. And finally, we have two large crocodiles. When we took a hike at Nairobi National Game Park on this last trip, we went all the way down to the river, down about maybe a 3/4 of a mile trail. And lo and behold, at the end of this trail, there was probably half a dozen very large crocodiles. And I was really keeping my eye on them because they can be very fast for a short distance. Now we're going to move into smaller animals. These are hyenas at Amboseli, and there's 14 of them in this picture. They're working on a kill of a buffalo. And there's a jackal or two in this picture also kind of waiting their turns with some pink flamingos in the background. All those buildings on the other side of the water are for the rangers, that for them and their equipment that are there to guard and keep an eye on the park. Here's a young hyena that's working on one of the morsels from that buffalo. I just love the eyes on this one. A gleam in the eye really makes a nature picture. That's the goal. You're always shooting to get a really good picture with the eyes like this one. We were very fortunate on our last trip that we found a leopard sleeping out in the open on a large branch. This is from about 75 yards away. They're nocturnal. They come in early in the morning from hunting all night, and usually they're in the tall grass or maybe up in a tree sleeping, but generally hidden by foliage. So in order to see one out in the open, this is very special. I've only seen them maybe 2 or 3 times out of 40 safaris. So that just tells you how special this is. Next is an impala buck, a young buck. These animals always have an alpha male that gets all of the females, and every year The young ones can challenge the alpha male for leadership. And then the ones that lose go back to being wallflower teenage boys that can't get a dance. But isn't this an incredible, just a beautiful creature? Here are two young cheetah cubs that were running all around and playing, and mom is laying there on the ground keeping a watchful eye on them. This is a baby warthog, a little Pumbaa. Now, everybody loves baby pictures. And yet another baby, we've got a baby water buck here. The adult water buck is in the large animal category. They can get pretty huge, but this little guy was pretty cute. And this is an olive baboon with her baby. I call this picture one mama to a customer, and that's just pure cuteness. This is a jackal at Nairobi National Game Park. Usually when I see them out in the wild and they're on a kill or they're out in the middle of nowhere, they're pretty scruffy looking, very mangy looking. They're beat up. It's pretty long time between meals a lot of times. You can see this one doesn't really have an ounce of fat on it, but this has got to be the best looking example of the species that I've ever seen. Just gorgeous. And finally, on this size animals, we've got an outspoken fox at Pedernales Falls State Park last year. It didn't like the photographer in the bird blind, and it was letting me know it. Now we're going to move on to the larger birds in God's creation. This is a great blue heron, one of my favorites. This is at Lake Georgetown, and it's flying from one shore to another. We got a little bit too close as we were taking pictures at dawn during what photographers call a golden hour, when you have a beautiful light. And here's another one that was successful in getting a fish for a snack. And they're incredible at fishing. When I watch them, they're probably successful about 70% of the time when they go after a fish. This is a great egret at Murphy Park in Taylor. And I was shooting into the sun, and this is almost like an X-ray. You can see every feather. You can see the bones in the wings. I just love this shot. It's called translucence, and it did very well in a photo competition. This is an African fish eagle getting a fish off of the surface of the water. And then it returned to its perch with the fish in one talon. They're very similar to our American bald eagle. Colors are a little bit different, but they're about the same size, and they're very majestic birds. This is a pod of pelicans. A group of pelicans on the land or on the water is called a pod or a scoop, and in the air they're called a squadron. And they do look like a squadron of bombers when they're in the air. This is a auger buzzard at Lake Nakuru in Kenya. A lot of what we would call hawks, the British who left their naming conventions behind, would call buzzards or kites. But I would say, if I had to guess, that this is a cousin to one of our hawks. This is a group of yellow-billed storks. They're always around the shore, and they're incredible to see in flight as well. This is a barred owl at Mills Pond a couple of years ago. And again, just look at those eyes. That really makes this shot. It was very cooperative. It's posed for me for quite a while, and I backed away and didn't disturb it, which is kind of the goal. When you're photographing wildlife, hopefully it's in the same place as where you found it doing what it was doing before when you're done. These are gray-crested cranes in Kenya. They're kind of a iconic bird that you always see pictures of. I've gotten them in flight a couple of times, which is very unusual. I even got a pair of them in flight a couple of years ago, but just look at the design that God put on them. This is called a secretary bird, mostly because of the quills that are coming out of the back of its head, like quill pens. And it's usually walking around on the ground, quite often on dirt roads in these game parks. And it forages for food on the ground. And I've only seen one fly one time, and it flew up into a tree. And I got a picture of that. Now we're going to move on to the medium and smaller birds. This is a green heron at Lake Georgetown, and I titled this one, Elvis Has Nothing on Me. They can be tall and stretch their neck like this, or they can squat down and compact themselves to the point where they look like a basketball. And that mohawk on its head, it can raise that up when it's disturbed, or it can be slicked back. So it can assume many different appearances. It's one of my favorite birds. The colors on it are very striking. And look at those yellow eyes. This is a yellow-crowned night heron at Mills Pond in Wells Branch with a crawfish. So he's eating Cajun that day. And this is Woody the wood duck at Mills Pond. I moved there in 2015 and have been going there since 2014. So in 9 years, he's been around all that time, and now he's been gone for about 4 or 5 months. And most of the nature photographers in the neighborhood are afraid that he has either died of old age or met another fate. But he was definitely an attraction at the pond. Everybody loved Woody. This is a red-shouldered hawk lifting off at the pond. Again, look for the catch light in the eyes. That's a secret to a picture like this. And here's a Cooper's hawk screaming at me also at Mills Pond. This is a yellow-necked spurfowl that we saw at Nairobi National Game Park on our most recent trip to Kenya. And you can see why it's called yellow-necked. This is a red-tailed hawk lifting off also near my home. And this is a weaver at Lake Nakuru in Kenya. These birds build a nest that is completely enclosed, and it has a hole in the bottom. So they go up into the nest through a hole in the bottom, and then they have shelves on the inside of the nest where they put the eggs after they've been laid to keep them safe. This is a vermilion flycatcher in Lago Vista on Lake Travis. Took this picture this spring. This is another one from Lago on the same day of a eastern bluebird. This is a scissor-tail flycatcher at Lago on that same day. Looks like a speeding bullet there, but they're very entertaining when their tails are fanned out. And when you see all the colors on their chest and under their wings. This is an African widow bird. This is in Kenya, and they're normally in flight. You see that very long black tail, looks like a widow's dress. And so that's the reason for the name. Very rarely will you find one perched. So this is kind of a rare shot that I got. Look at that beautiful red head and those bright eyes. This is called a pygmy falcon. This was also in Africa. That's a small falcon about the size of one of our kestrels, or a merlin or a peregrine falcon. Here's one of my favorites over there. It's called the lilac-breasted roller, and they feed on insects. This one is called the blue-naped mousebird, and you can see the blue nape on the back of its neck. It's got beautiful red beak and red around the sides. It's just a beautiful, beautiful creature. This is a giant kingfisher in Kenya with a fish in its mouth, heading for the shore to figure a way to eat that. This is a eastern phoebe at the pond by my house, just as it was getting ready to take flight. And this one has been in a photo contest as well. I love this picture. This is back in Africa. This is a hoopoe at Lake Nakuru. I love the long beak and the way the feathers coming out of the back of the head give it a certain symmetry. God did another great job on designing this one. This one's called a red-cheeked cordon bleu, and that's also at Lake Nakuru. Back home, we have a downy woodpecker with its beautiful spring mating plumage and bright red on the head. This is a black-chinned hummingbird working on a Turk's cap to get some nectar. And this is a ruby-throated hummingbird. Next up, we have plants and insects as we move down the food chain. This is a palm tree at the Nairobi National Game Park. It's near the road. It's about 1.5 miles from the exit. And we always see this tree as we're leaving the park every time we're there. And I just love the way all these palms are grown together to form this incredible plant. This is a water lily at Zilker Gardens. This one is placed in a photo contest as well. I just love the colors and just the symmetry of this picture. This one is a sunflower taken from a different perspective. A friend of mine taught me to always look at the other side of things, look around behind you. You'll get a picture that other people don't get. It looks like something nobody else does. And my friends and I all take these now that we've learned that from my friend. So the back of a sunflower is a nice subject. And this is a Texas thistle, something we see all the time here in Texas, but up close and personal, it takes on its own character. One tip is that if you can get one flower isolated like this, it can be quite a picture rather than a group of flowers. This is a monarch butterfly on a thistle. And here it is opened up. This one is a giant swallowtail. This one is called a buckeye. The pattern on that is absolutely beautiful. Then we get into dragonflies. I love dragonflies and getting into the small world, getting up close and personal with shots like this. This one's called a neon skimmer. I mean, that red is absolutely stunning. This one is called an eastern amberwing. And you can just see it's all different shades of orange. This is a very common one here in Texas called a widow skimmer. I love the translucent end of the wings and the gold on the body in this one. And this one is called a four-spotted pennant, also a fairly common dragonfly. Finally, we have a pollinator caught in the act. A little bumblebee working on pollinating some flowers and getting some nectar for itself to make some honey. Last but not least, I've got a collection here of some of my favorite pictures of the last 3 years or so to share. In no particular order, just ones that definitely demonstrate how good God is. This is a shot from my drone. I call it Angry Sky. It's in a photo competition right now that is down in San Marcos. Every year they have a photo competition called Naturescapes. But this is quite a storm coming in right at sunset. You can even see the rain and there was lightning going on. I got a little bit of video of this too. This is Sergeant Bluebird at Berry Springs Park in Georgetown. He's the new animal control officer to make sure the dogs are on their leash. This is a painted bunny. This is one of God's most beautiful creations. I call it a rainbow on a bird. Look at those colors. You got the yellow and the greens on the back feathers, the orange on the chest, the orange around the eye ring, and that beautiful blue on the head. Just a stunning bird. So I've got several pictures of these since it's one of my favorites, and you have to see them from several angles to really appreciate them. So here's one perch that's leaning forwards to give you a better look at all that color on the back and on the wings. I call this one Painted Bunting Karaoke. That can really sing up a storm. I usually hear them long before I see them, and then you just stay posted in one place, and eventually you get a picture like this. Finally, I was blessed to get one in flight. They're very fast and they're not that big. So I'm just so happy that I was able to get this photo, and it's been in several photo contests also. Here's a tuckered out hyena at Amboseli National Game Park in Kenya. Looks like he's had a rough day or a rough night. They're a nocturnal hunter also. This is a blast off of pink flamingos at Lake Amboseli. A blast off is when you have hundreds or even thousands of birds all simultaneously lifting off, and the sound is one of the most awesome things you'll hear in nature. These are little bee eaters, one of my favorite birds over in Kenya. And yes, they do eat bees. I call this one Wildebeest Reflections. I love the perfectly calm water and the mirror-like reflections in this one. And then as an added bonus along the shoreline on the horizon there, you've got hundreds of pink flamingos. Here's a wildebeest after they've crossed Lake Amboseli and they're getting up onto dry land, and this one just had to kick its heels up. And if you can view this picture closer, there's water everywhere that it's spraying from the kicking that it's doing. Another shot of an African fish eagle, this one in flight, squawking. Just a magnificent bird. And here comes one. I call this one, Hi, Honey, I'm Home. This is a fish eagle coming in to perch with its mate. This is a white-tailed deer in flight at Berry Springs Park in Georgetown. I got a whole series of pictures of several deer that were running around, and just got lucky to get this one where it was completely airborne. This is a northern harrier, one of my favorite raptors. This was taken in Bosque del Apache National Wildlife Refuge near Socorro, New Mexico, just as it was lifting off near an observation deck. It couldn't have been more than about 50 to 75 feet away. And with a big lens, I was lucky not to chop off a wing in this picture since it was so close. Now here's a picture of an adult male. That previous picture was either a female or a juvenile male. The juvenile males eventually become what's called the gray ghost. This adult, after maybe 3 or 4 years, it's got those beautiful haunting yellow eyes and the gray and black color. I mean, it's just it's a bird you can't forget once you've seen it. This is a domestic dispute in Kenya. We spent 45 minutes following this couple around. It started out with the female and the male were sleeping on the ground, and the male tried to get up and sneak away and leave her sleeping there because lions are not monogamous, and he was trying to get to his one of his other girlfriends, and she woke up, and this happened 3 times where he would lay down again and act like he was asleep, and he'd try and sneak off. And this is after about the 4th time. She's given him a real piece of her mind. Here's a more peaceful couple at Nairobi Game Park. And this is a landing dispute. These are 2 great egrets in their mating plumage. They've got beautiful green masks around their eyes, and they've got wonderful angel hair mating plumage that is only around during the springtime during mating season. And I think that this one is trying to land a little too close to the other one, and it's letting it know about it. This is yet another blast off. These are snow geese in New Mexico. Maybe 50 or 60,000 of them lift off all at once. And I've heard Niagara Falls. I've heard lions roar at me from not very far away. And there is nothing that will match the sound of this. It's like you're inside of a jet engine. This is a sandhill crane, also in New Mexico. Here's some more sandhill cranes, and fourth one from the right didn't get the memo. He's not in sync with the others, but I think it makes a pretty cool picture. And then we got this shot at Bitter Lake near Roswell, New Mexico. At sunset, a supermoon was rising, and we didn't know it. Normally, you would plan a shot like this. This was absolute pure luck, but I'll take it. Sometimes luck is really a good thing. This one is a cattle egret, and he's saying to the other one, pretty cool mating plumage, dude. Here's an osprey. These are also called fish eagles, or they're called seahawks in other parts of the country or other parts of the world. They primarily feed on fish, and it's one of my favorite raptors. And here's a black and white treatment that I gave a picture of one lifting off. I just love the expressions and the eyes on these. They have black around their eyes. It looks like mascara. Here's a mother and child Muscovy duck. So we'll go for a little bit of cuteness again. This is a pied-billed grebe at Berry Springs Park in Georgetown. And you might ask about that pinkish color. That's redbuds that only bloom for a day or two there every year. And I happen to catch the right day with the right reflection, the right light, the right everything. So again, luck is a good thing now and then. This is our state bird, the northern mockingbird, working on some berries. This is a burrowing owl framed by barbed wire out near Granger Lake. This is my friend and mentor, Graham Simpson, at Chesapeake Bay about 3 years ago in January. It was cold that day, but the sky was stunning, and I love the leading lines of the dock going out to the fishing pier, going out to the water. This is an American kestrel. That's the smallest falcon in America. They got wonderful colors, a beautiful brown on their wings on the back, that grayish blue, and the stripes on the head are stunning. This is a merlin, another small falcon, just a little bit bigger than the kestrel. This is at Lake Georgetown. This is a cedar waxwing, one of my favorites. You notice the red on the end of the wings, and then the yellow on the end of the tail. It looks like they've been dipped in wax. That's where the name comes from. And then they've got a little bandito mask. So they always look like they're up to something. And this is one little great horned owlet telling a joke to the other one. Did I tell you the one about the pastor, the rabbi, and the priest? We've got an armadillo that's kind of thirsty, getting a drink at South Llano River State Park out of one of the bird baths. We've got, this is two cormorants at my pond in Mills Pond. This one placed in a photo competition, and I called it, "Just wait until your father gets home, young man." That one is really getting into the face of the other one. This is a limpkin. I just took this picture this week. It's a rare bird for around here. It should only be around the Florida coast. And from there, it ranges down into South America, depending on the time of year. But they eat apple mussels. And I did find it eating some oysters, clams, mussels, whatever you want to call them. It was digging them up from the pond and seemed to be doing okay. There's two of these in Austin now at different locations. So maybe it's learned to adapt to what we have here in Texas. This is a brown booby at Lake Georgetown, another rare bird for here. It shouldn't be within 2,000 miles of here, yet it was here all summer last year. It started out as a juvenile and then got darker and darker into adult colors. And they feed on fish, but they're typically a saltwater bird that's around the coast of Florida and California, but not here. So it was kind of special to be able to see this guy. This is a cardinal blasting off at Pedernales Falls State Park last year, one of my favorite pictures. And this is a shot that won a photo competition down in San Marcos. It's called Wink, Wink, Nod. These are 3 screech owlets. And of course, you got 2 of them, wink, wink, and then you got Nod looking right at us. So I just love this picture. I've got it on my wall as a 24 by 36 canvas print. Finally, we've got a drone shot of my pond, Mills Pond, at sunrise. Just when everything works out and all the colors and the timing and the clouds happen, it's magical. And I just thank Jesus every time I see something like this, or every time I come around the corner and see a new bird or a new animal or some kind of behavior I've never seen before. So to sum up, while we see many of the attributes of God and his creation, that's really only a starting point in our witness to people of other faiths, to non-believers or seekers. The discussion has to proceed from how awesome God is, as shown by what he has made, to a clear, intentional proclamation of the saving gospel by those who believe in Jesus. So that's our work is cut out for us, people. We need to do that. And the reason we do that are the last words of Jesus before he ascended. I've always believed that last words are very important. So from the end of Matthew, he says, therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. I recorded the slideshow that you just saw yesterday on September 2nd and presented pretty much the same information with a few less pictures at Redeemer Lutheran Church this morning on September 3rd, 2023. We had technical difficulties during the recording of that session. And so I'm going to put this out on my YouTube since I don't have anything that from that class. And it was a wonderful session. And you've seen everything and more that we showed in person. And we did have a question and answer period after the slideshow. And here are the questions that were asked. The most revealing topic was, when did you feel closest to God when you were out in nature during your life? And we got many different answers. People on the beach at night under a full moon, people in the mountains when you could touch the stars, they seem to be so close. Sometimes just being outdoors at all and getting away from the hustle and bustle is all that it really takes to experience God, to feel his presence, to be in meditation, to be able to be in prayer, to be able to be in conversation with him. So you might ask yourself that question and try to take yourself back to that place every time that you're out there in nature to get yourself mentally ready to hear what God has to say to you. We also talked a little bit about how we can use the awesomeness of creation and the way it points to a all-powerful God to witness to others about our faith in Jesus, because even though you can see God and his awesome qualities that are by what he has made, this does not tell anybody about the gospel or about Jesus' saving grace. So you can always start a conversation starting from nature when you find out somebody's a nature lover like you are. And those initial conversations are always best spent doing a lot of listening and finding out where a person is coming from so that it's much easier to relate to them. Become a friend first before you get into a heavy, deep spiritual conversation. And then just let the Spirit and the Lord lead you. There will be signs as to whether you push too far or whether there's a green light that says, hey, go, 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 and go to the next step in a conversation like that. But that's always exciting to be his eyes and his hands and his feet and to be doing his work out in the world. And then finally, we talked a little bit about stopping and smelling the roses and how it's good to watch nature shows like David Attenborough or a slideshow like I just presented to get us grounded again in nature. to let us know that we need to forget about all the hustle and the bustle and the busyness and get back to basics, to get back to what we were created to be part of creation and realize that He's God and we're not. And once we get into that right relationship, it's pretty incredible. So finally, if you want to see more of this kind of content, you can take a look at my Facebook where I post every day. I've been posting for I'm in my 9th year now. I started January 1st of 2015 and I'm still continuing to post on a daily basis, pictures from nature and things that I see. This is going to be on my YouTube channel where I'm Dave DeVore. So you can find this content and drone videos and other Bible studies and other content that I've put together there. And if you like what you see, go ahead and subscribe out there. My photography website is called photoartbydave.com, and you see my contact information there. So blessings on your day. Thank you for watching.